Hello, my dear friends. This is Keith from IELTS Speaking Success. As always, it's fantastic to see you again. How are you today? Well, I'm pleased to hear that. So today we're going to be looking at the IELTS Speaking Cue Cards. That's the Part 2 tasks from May to August 2020. We'll be looking at some ideas, the language, the idioms, the model answers, everything you could possibly dream about. Let's do it. So, in case you don't know me, my name is Keith. I run IELTS Speaking Success, the website, Facebook page and group, and the YouTube channel. So really, I just want to help you speak better English, give better answers, and get a higher score on the IELTS speaking. So here are the Part 2 cue cards we're going to be looking at. Describe a time when you made a mistake and you learned from it. We all make mistakes. What kind of mistakes do you make? And do you learn from it? We're going to learn how to talk about that. Next. Describe a situation where you were surprised to meet a friend. We're going to look at the language and some ideas to discuss this one. And then, describe a friend who is a good leader. Now, I remember the drummer in my band. He was a good leader. You're going to find out more about him shortly. Next one, describe an occasion where you wore your best clothes. We always like to look smart and dapper, right, in our best clothes. We're going to learn how to talk about that in this task cue card. And then describe a recent goal you have set yourself. In this day and age of productivity and setting goals, everybody's trying to set goals. This has become a very topical subject. We're going to look at how to answer this cue card. And then describe a program or an app that you think is useful. Now, in this day and age, as technology progresses at an unprecedented rate, right? Of course, software programs, mobile apps are hugely popular. We have to know how to talk about these in our day-to-day lives and in the IELTS test. So this is an interesting question. So I'm going to go into quite some detail to give you really good ideas and language on these cue cards. It's actually probably going to be over 2 videos, which is great, right? 2 for the price of nothing. Okay, let's do it. Let's begin then with some tips for Part 2, right, for these cue cards. So first of all, let's talk about that 1-minute preparation, because you know in Part 2 you have 1 minute to prepare and then you should speak for 1 to 2 minutes. In the 1-minute preparation, right, do not spend time thinking about different ideas. Oh, I could talk about that. What about that? That's not so good. What about this one? And then suddenly, bing, your minute is finished and you're ill-prepared. So what you should do, I think, is in the first 10 seconds, get your idea. Get the first idea that is good enough, right? Doesn't need to be perfect, just I can talk about that. Yes, bum, get it. And then spend the rest of the time thinking about your structure, right? Because the structure, how you connect your ideas, the signposts, the coherence is a key part of your fluency. Band 7 develops topics coherently. So that structure is really important. And just to clear up something, you can use the bullet points, but you don't have to. I have some students really stressed out after the exam. I only talked about one of the bullet points. Oh no, will I lose marks? No, you don't have to talk about all of the bullet points, right? The important thing is you talk about that topic at the top. The bullet points are a guide, but you do not have to follow them. Let's be clear. Okay, so think about your structure, about what you're going to say. Another good tip, I think, in my humble opinion, is to prepare clearly your first sentence, right? So that when you begin speaking, when the examiner says, "Can you begin speaking now, please?" You don't go, "Oh, yeah. I'm going to talk. I'm talking about this time No, right? Get your first sentence ready. So when the examiner says, "Can you start talking now, please?" "Yes, I'd like to describe the time I went to see Ariana Grande in concert. It was really good. What happened was..." Bum, bum, bum. Prepared, right? Next tip. You can use pauses, right? There's a difference between pause and hesitation. Pause is when you stop, you're silent, you just gather your thoughts and you speak. Hesitation is where you're and you don't know what you're going to say, right? So use pauses in a good way, but avoid hesitation. So you'll have noticed in my introduction there, right? Notice the pause. I'm going to talk to you about a concert I went to when I went to see Ariana Grande. It was a great concert. I really enjoyed it. What happened was... Can you hear the pauses, the silence? That is good. Much better than this. I'm going to talk about a time I went to see Ariana Grande in a concert in London. It was great. It was great. Yeah, and can you see? Not so good. Use pauses, not hesitation. Great. Those are my tips. Of course, the final thing I want to say is that you should practice. So when you're listening to today's video, yes, listen, make notes, repeat and repeat, but then also go and practice your answers. Now, you can practice at home, you can practice with a speaking partner. If possible, get a teacher, because a teacher can give you feedback, can give you constructive ideas on how to make your answer even better. Now, one of the best platforms out there for getting a teacher, I think, is Cambly. And I think Cambly is good, very good, because several reasons, right? They are dedicated to teaching English. That's their strength. Also, they have native English speakers. So when you're with your teacher and practicing, you're engaging and interacting with somebody who's speaking natural English with perfect pronunciation, just what you need for IELTS speaking, right? Also, you can get to pick or choose the tutor that you like. You can try different tutors or different teachers at the time you want. So it's totally flexible. Great. It's a really good platform. It's a great way for you to practice not only part 2 cue cards, but all of your IELTS speaking. The guys at Cambly have sponsored this video. Thanks very much, guys. I don't know if they can hear me. They're in San Francisco and I'm in Santander. But so you can get a discount, right? When you join Cambly, you get a discount automatically. But with this code, this is ielts-success-disc. You get an extra discount on top of the existing discount. You can get 10% off for joining for 1 month. More likely, if you're preparing for IELTS, 3 months might be good, and you get a whopping 19% off, 19. If you're in for the long haul, you can get 32% for signing up for a year. Anyway, go and check them out. The links are below. Use the code. If it seems good for you and it's just what you want to practice, go and join the guys at Cambly, and I guarantee you will see the benefits as you start practicing with your native speaking teacher. Now, let's go straight into our cue cards, May to August 2020. Okay, let's go straight in with the first one. Describe a time when you made a mistake and learnt from it. So notice the key words here. It's when you made a mistake, not somebody else. It's a mistake and you learnt from it. So you want to talk about the mistake and what you learnt, right? So some ideas, what can you talk about? Well, we all do stupid things, right? Yeah, come on, I know, I do stupid things. I'm sure you do stupid things sometimes. Like, for example, you go to Starbucks with your computer. You're sitting in Starbucks with your coffee, right? Yeah, I've brought my own cup, right? Eco-friendly. I come in, I put my cup next to my computer. I stop typing. Oh, hello, Michael. Oh, sugar. Coffee's all over the computer. Now that's stupid, but it's a mistake. And what do you learn? Don't go to Starbucks. No, you learn don't put your cup next to your computer, right? Now that's a simple mistake. It's a stupid thing, but there are lots of things like that, right? For example, when we're eating and we're full and we go, oh, go on, just a bit more ice cream. Oh yeah, I'll have a bit more pasta. But you're full and then you get indigestion or you get sick, right? Or, for example, when you've got a cold and you've got a runny nose and you're coughing and sneezing, you think, oh, I'll go to work or I'll go to school. I've still got things to do. And you go to work and you get even sicker and you end up back home. But you've then infected 20 other people. Oh, well done, right? Stupid mistake. So these are some things maybe you could talk about. Other things slightly bigger you may talk about is the typical situation where you choose to follow somebody's advice when they don't know anything about the issue. Or the opposite, right? When you don't follow somebody's advice when they are an expert in the issue, right? Now this can be things around work or studies or family life, right? Your grandfather says, listen, don't take that job. You'll regret it. Trust me, I've worked for 40 years. And you go, yeah, sure, granddad. You take the job. It's a nightmare. You hate it. And you should have listened to your granddad, right? So things like that. Or when friends tell you about a restaurant, they go, listen, don't go to that restaurant. This happened to me, right? I saw this restaurant advertised. It looked great. It was a bit expensive, but I thought it'll be great. I can take my family there. Some friends said, listen, we've been there. It's terrible. It's a rip-off, right? They charge you too much. It's not good quality. And I thought, yeah. And I went, took the family. It was horrible. Food was rubbish. It was overpriced. What a waste of time. If only I had listened to my friend in the first place, right? So things like that, advice, following or not following advice, you can talk about. There's another kind of situation as well, which is a bit more intimate and emotional. And that's where you say something wrong to a friend or a family member, something that it's a mistake, right? You know you shouldn't say it, but you blurt it out, you say it by mistake, and then you regret it, right? I mean, it could be a simple thing or a big thing. A simple thing like, I say to my wife, are you sure you want to wear that dress? Oh, that was a mistake. Why? What's wrong with it? Why? Do I look fat? Should I change? Oh, that's it. Right, I'm going to change. And I have to wait for an hour while she changes into 16 different dresses. That was a mistake. So things like this, right? When you say something wrong. There are other things around trust as well, right? Where you trust somebody or don't trust them and things don't work out. Or you trust somebody and they let you down. This sometimes happens where you give some information to somebody. Maybe it's a secret or confidential information and you trust them to keep it discreet. And then they tell the whole world. They post it on Facebook and everybody knows and go, oh no, that was a mistake. I shouldn't have told them that, should I? So things around trust and people letting you down with information or money. You lend them money and then you never see that money again. So there's lots of things we can talk about. Let's dive into some of the language. So the basics first, we can talk about making a mistake. Collocations, we have a big mistake or a small mistake. Make an error, but here we say a minor error or a major error. Another word is a slip up, so it connects, pup, slip up, a slip up. I made a slip up. Or as a verb, to slip up, I slipped up. I slipped up. Ooh, up. I slipped up. I slipped up. Try that 3 times quickly. You could also say, well, I fell into the trap of. Sometimes it's not a trap, but you say, I fell into the trap of ignoring my granddad because I always ignore him. Well, don't ignore your elders. They are, rocks of wisdom. You should listen to them. Now, as you've noticed as I was talking before, some very interesting grammar comes up, right? Things like, I wish I hadn't done that, right? Expressing a regret. I wish I hadn't lent him the money. I shouldn't have lent him the money. I shouldn't have becomes shouldn't have. Shouldn't, should not, shouldn't, shouldn't have. I shouldn't have done that. Stress on the done. I shouldn't have done that. And also, great opportunity for if only. If only I had known. I would have, right? I would have gone to a different restaurant. If only I'd known, I would have gone to another restaurant. If only I had known, I wouldn't have gone to that stupid restaurant that was overpriced. If only I had listened to my friend. So some really nice complex tenses we can use. And finally, talking about learning, well, I learnt a lesson, or it taught me an important lesson. It taught me, notice the taught, it taught me, actually taught, the final t is dropped when you have m after. It taught me becomes it taught me. Notice the T disappears. It taught me, or it taught me an important lesson. It taught me an important lesson. Or a key takeaway from this was a key takeaway. Takeaway is not your chicken and chips or your chow mein from the Chinese restaurant. The takeaway here is the lesson learned, right? A key takeaway for me was not to lend money to him. Right, nice. Now, here's a model answer for you. Let me just explain first, in the minute preparation, this is what I thought about and what I wrote down. I thought I'll talk about that restaurant I mentioned earlier, where I ignored the advice from a friend. I'll talk about when it happened. This was actually when I was in my 20s. And I'll talk about the result, what happened and what I learnt from it as well. Okay, let's try. I'm going to try and speak for 2 minutes. So I'm going to tell you about a time when I made a big mistake because I ignored some advice from a friend. This was back in the day, in my 20s, when I'd finished university and I just started working. And I wanted to take my wife to a nice restaurant, and I chose this restaurant because I'd seen an advertisement about it, and it looked really good and quite posh. And I thought I can make a good impression on my wife. My friend, though, said to me, "Don't go there. We've been there. It's terrible. It's overpriced. The food is not very good. And you won't like it, and the service is a bit shoddy." So I totally ignored my friend and I took my wife to the restaurant, and it was rubbish. The service was very bad. It was slow. The food wasn't even hot. Certainly, it was overpriced. It wasn't worth what they were charging. And so I came away very, very disappointed. And for me, one of the key takeaways was that I should have listened to my friend because he'd been there before, right? I mean, if I had known it was going to be such bad service, I certainly wouldn't have chosen to go there. So that was a time where I made a mistake and learned something from it. Let's move on. The next question, the next cue card. Describe a situation where you were surprised to meet a friend. Great. You should say where it was, who you met, why you were surprised, and explain how you felt about it. So here the key thing is, right, you meet a friend, right? And the feeling is surprised, not angry, not upset, surprised. Okay, that's what you want to talk about. So some ideas here. Well, where and how might you meet a friend and why would you be surprised? Maybe at a party, right? You bump into a friend. Or imagine at a job interview. You're going for a job interview and there's Colin. Oh, hello, Colin, right? Oh no, we're going for the same job. I better smile, but, right? Oh, Colin, yeah, good to see you, yeah. You don't want Colin to get the job, right? So maybe a job interview. Also, it's quite common when you're traveling, right? You're traveling to another country and then you bump into a friend who lives in the same street. You go, what are the chances? What a coincidence. So traveling often happens. Or when you go to a restaurant, right? And you bump into a friend in the restaurant. Oh, Colin, yeah. Did you get the job? What a shame. Maybe when you're walking around the park, you may meet a friend by chance as you're walking around the park or going down the gym. There are lots of ideas, right? So let's look at some key vocabulary. I've already said to bump into. To bump is boom, when two things bang into each other. When you meet by chance, by accident, that's to bump into somebody, right? Make sure you're connecting, bump into, pinto, bump into. In the past, tinto, bumped into. I bumped into my friend. We can also say run into someone. Same thing. Come across someone. I came across my friend. I ran into an old friend. Talking about the feeling of being surprised, I was surprised, right? If it's very strong, I was astonished. I was amazed. I was flabbergasted. They're quite strong, but they're nice words. A very nice kind of expression is I was taken aback. I was taken aback. Aback is one word. Great expression. Very good here. I was taken aback when I saw my friend in the park. Okay. So again, let me give you a model answer here. In my 1 minute preparation, I thought about the time when I met a friend in the park. So I'm going to talk about the setting of the park. I'll talk about the person. It was Mary, my university classmate, and talk a bit about what we did when we met. Okay. Can you start speaking now, please? So I'd like to tell you about the time I bumped into a friend in the park near where I live. It was a Sunday afternoon and I had decided to take a stroll around the local park. And then to my surprise, as I was walking along the lake, I saw this familiar face. And as we got closer, I suddenly realised it was Mary. Mary was an old friend from university. I hadn't seen her for like ages, maybe 10 or 15 years. I was surprised. I was really taken aback because I didn't expect to see her in my local park. And I was wondering, what is she doing here? So anyway, we bumped into each other and we said hello, of course, and then we kind of started chatting. And so we decided to go for a coffee together, and we spent about half an hour talking about university, catching up with each other, catching up on the latest news. So she had got married, she'd had children, and she was now actually working in my hometown. That was a coincidence. It's a small world, right? And that's why she was in the park. She was just, relaxing and kicking back on the Sunday afternoon. It was great to meet her. And then we exchanged phone numbers and said we would stay in touch. Let's move on. The next question. The next cue card is describe a friend who is a leader. You should say who this person is, how you know them, how they behave, and explain why you think they're a good leader. So remember, the important thing is not to talk about all of the bullet points. You don't have to, but you can. But you must describe a friend, right? Not a famous person, not a president, a friend who is a good leader, not a bad leader. So those are the key words. So here, well, talking about leaders, I guess you could talk about friends who are leaders of clubs. If you belong to a club and they're like a leader, maybe you're in a reading club or a teaching club, and there's always somebody who organizes it and leads it, right? Or maybe a sports team. If you play football on the weekend, there's probably a leader in the team who organizes and leads everybody. Again, you could talk about any kind of activity or hobby that you do that's organized and led by somebody. If you're in a working situation, a leader may be one of the bosses in the organization, a leader in the different departments. Each department will have their own leader. You could talk about people at work. Similarly, if you're at university, one of your teachers is a leader, but especially if they're head of the faculty or head of the department, they're going to be a leader. If you have a friend who has his or her own company, they're the leader, especially a small business or a startup. Even if there's only 2 or 3 people working there, if one of them is leading, they're a leader. So these are different things you could talk about. Now, if you've ever studied business, you'll know that there's a difference between a leader and a manager, right? The manager is, management is the art of getting things done through people. It's a great quote. That's what I learned at university. I didn't know it was actually by Mary Parker Follett. Who is Mary Parker Follett? I don't know. So I went on the internet and it turns out she is an American social worker, management consultant, and she's one of the leaders in the field of organizational behavior. But that quote's very famous, right? Getting things done through people. So it's organizing people to do things. Leadership is a bit different. Leadership is about having the vision. And there's a great quote by John Quincy Adams. And everybody goes, who is John Quincy Adams? Well, 6th President of the United States, right? Always the old presidents are much wiser than our modern day presidents, it seems to me. And he said, if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader, right? So it's more about the vision and taking people or helping people be bigger and better and do more. So it's a bit more abstract. When it comes to IELTS, I wouldn't worry too much about this difference, right? You can talk about managers and leaders. It's great, but just keep the focus on leading, right? In your language. Don't say, oh, a good manager I know is, no. A good leader I know is the head of the finance department, and he's really good at leading his team. He has a vision of what he wants to achieve, and he has a knack of taking people with him. Something like that. Let's look at the language. So people who have a skill, right, of doing something, we can say he has a knack of leading people, yeah? Or she has a knack of helping people achieve more. Have a knack of. Nice. He is a natural born leader. She is charismatic, right? Leaders are often quite charismatic, gregarious, outgoing people, right? Not always, but they often have to be to take people with them. They need to be persuasive, convincing, compelling, but also empathetic, right? And have good listening skills. I think, in my humble opinion, we can talk about good at building rapport. So leaders are often good at building relationships with people. So if she is good at building rapport with people, she can lead them. Other useful expressions might be to take risks, or better still, to take balanced risks, right? You want a leader who can take risks, but not ridiculous risks that will bring danger and ruin to everybody, but someone who can take balanced risks. Somebody who can see the bigger picture. To have a vision is to see the bigger picture. And also the ability to keep calm under pressure. Keep calm under pressure, I guess, is also a good leadership trait. Great. So I'd like to tell you about a friend of mine who was a good leader. By the way, in my 1 minute, this is what I wrote down. Who? This was the drummer of the band I was in. The setting was when I was living in Madrid. And the why, things like he was a good listener, build rapport, had a good vision of what he wanted with the band. I'd like to tell you about a friend of mine who was a good leader, and he was actually the drummer in the band that I played in. So we had a band. This was back about 20 years ago when I was living in Madrid at the time. I had moved there a few years earlier and had made some friends, and we decided to set up a band. I played guitar, and my friend Lindsay was the drummer in the band. I think he was a bit of a natural born leader. He was quite charismatic. What I particularly liked about him was that he was a good listener, right? He was very empathetic. He was able to get ideas from different people in the band, bring them together, and then just take us along towards this goal that we had. I think he was able to step back and see the bigger picture. So although our kind of daily rehearsals were important, he had the ability to step out of our practice and keep an eye on the bigger picture and the vision for which we were striving to achieve. He had a flair for talking to people. He was good at building rapport, not only with the band members, but with fans as well, which was an important part of our growth at the time. And that was it. That's why I think he was a good leader. So that's it for today. This actually is the first of, there will be more videos on the May to August cue cards. So look out next week. We'll be doing more cue cards to give you ideas, language, idioms, and some model answers so that you can speak better English, give better answers, and get a higher score on IELTS speaking. If you want to know the full list of cue cards, go to my website, to the recent topics. In fact, let me show you how. Go to ielts-success-disc. You come to the home page, look at the navigation bar, the test, recent questions, and when you click or press there, don't go to the part 1, go to the part 2 cue cards, click, and here you will have a full list. You've got cue cards about things, events and activities, and people, places, so you can get everything you need there. Excellent. And just a final thank you again to our friends at Cambly. Thank you very much for sponsoring the video. It is a huge help. And for you guys, do go and check out Cambly to do some practice, right, of your cue cards and all your IELTS speaking. It is so valuable to have that feedback from a native speaker, a real teacher, and to do it on a flexible platform with the teacher you want when you want. And there are discounts, what's more. So go and do that. And do remember, when you have the classes, it's not a fixed class. You can come in and tell the teacher, I want to practice this, this, and this. It's your class. You decide what you want to do. Okay? So go and check it out at Cambly. Great. Well, thank you very much. As always, it's been a lot of fun. I hope this lesson has been hugely useful for you. And look out next week for the next bunch of cue cards, ideas, language, everything you can dream of. I can't wait to see you soon. Take care now. Bye-bye. Hello, my friends. How are you? No. Really? I just want to help you speak better English, give better I want to help myself speak better English. Or she has a knack of... Great. So let me give you, again, a very short, not short, why did I say that?